All right, guys, a few days ago, we posted a rather popular video on how to learn basic electrical using a very easy to follow book from my friend Dan Sullivan. And we actually sold well over 100 books in the first couple of days of that video, as a matter of fact, indicating a lot of people do want to learn basic electrical for automotive. Now, one option with buying that book was with an included LOADpro that quite a number of people bought that option with the book and the LOADpro. So in this video, we're going to make sure that you guys get the most out of your LOADpro, and if you're not familiar, we'll review it. And in order to really appreciate it, we need to have some basic electrical. So we're going to cover a little bit of basic electrical in this application too. Now, if you want to be the only do-it-yourself in the zip code that can do advanced automotive diagnostics, not just with electrical, but using a scan tool to accurately check engine lights without just parts changing, then you want to do a couple things. One of them, you got to master your basic electrical, so you might want to consider that book from my friend Dan Sullivan. The other thing you want to do is you want to invest just $3.49 to go over to my website and check out not just my basic electrical training videos, but my step-by-step videos on how to do lots of advanced diagnostics that even a lot of professionals can't do. I have hundreds of people who have told me that they've been able to pass their automotive ASE certifications using those videos, be able to master concepts they haven't been able to master before, and even develop whole careers based on diagnostics from the videos on that channel. So that's what you'll want to do. All right, what we're going to do here is show a very, very basic example of an electrical problem that is fairly common and how the LOADpro can make it very easy to detect. All right, so we are going to make a very basic circuit here. So I'm going to go ahead and get some power right there on the positive side. So we've got power there. I'm going to go to this switch right here like that. The other side of my switch is going to go to a light bulb. All right, then we are going to create a ground side here. So the green wire is my ground. I'm going to connect my ground to my light bulb so we have power to the light bulb when I turn on the switch. Now, in this particular example, because the switch is on the plus side, the power side, this is a positive side switch. I could have very well wired the switch on the ground and made a ground side switch. This is a power side switch. Usually in most automotive applications, the switch would actually be on the ground side, and there's some reasons we discuss for that in some of my other videos. All right, given this, provided the battery is good, when we turn on the switch, obviously the light bulb should light. And it does, and it lights up very nice and bright. Now, we can also take our electric meter, set it to volts. This is an auto ranging meter, so it's super easy to use. We have a review of this on the channel, I believe. And I can go over to my negative and positive and read my battery voltage. And we can see the battery is fully charged. We've got 12.4 volts or so there. So, very healthy system here. All right, what we're going to do now is we are going to introduce a problem into this system. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this wire right here. And I am going to introduce a resistor in here. This is going to represent like corroded wiring, maybe a bad connection somewhere, something like that. I'm going to go ahead and hook up to my resistor now, so we've got resistance on the positive side of the circuit. Turn on my switch. Well, we see the light is much dimmer, much dimmer. Let's go ahead and remove that, compare that to that. The light is far dimmer, and that's because we have what's known as a voltage drop on the circuit. Now, with that dim light like that, a lot of people are going to try cleaning their headlight casings and things like that, replacing the light bulb. Still dim. As a matter of fact, we're going to put in a bigger resistance here. So now we've got much more resistance in the circuit. Now when I turn on the light, we can see it doesn't even light at all. Now, obviously, without question, what's going to happen here? Well, every do-it-yourselfer is just going to put a light bulb in there. They're going to replace the light bulb, and it still doesn't light up. And now they need somebody like you to help them figure out what's wrong, because they're going to see their connections are good. You know it's not a battery problem, and everything else on the car works, so they don't know what they're going to do here. Worse yet, they may have enough electrical knowledge to be dangerous that actually gets them in trouble. Obviously, one of the things they're going to be thinking is there's probably not 12 volts to this bulb. We're going to go ahead and set our meter up here. And what are they going to do? They're going to disconnect the bulb, right? And they're going to take their one end of their DVOM to the negative in the connector. They're going to put the other end to the positive of the connector. They're going to turn on their lights, and they're going to see, well, there is voltage to the connector. This has to be a bad bulb. And maybe they replace another new bulb, and it still doesn't work. And the problem is they don't understand the concept of voltage drop. I will link some videos in the description of this video that you can go to really help understand voltage drop, and some of them are here on my free YouTube channel. Here's where the LOADpro comes in. See, the problem here is that we are doing this completely wrong, measuring the 12 volts here. Of course we have 12 volts, because if we understand basic electrical, no matter how much resistance we have, as long as it's not open, or technically as long as it's not more resistance than what's internal in the meter, to be really accurate, we are always going to read 12 volts there. That's the basics of how electricity works. But if we use LOADpro, we're going to be able to determine in seconds where our issue is. So all I'm going to do is remove my normal leads, and I'm going to substitute them with my LOADpro. All right? And we're going to do the exact same test with the LOADpro. We've got our circuit on. We're going to put our negative lead to the negative in the light connector. We're going to put our positive lead to the positive. And again, we read the full battery voltage there. Seems this light should light. However, there's a red button here on the LOADpro. When I push that button, we can see the reason this light won't light is because we actually only have 8.5 volts to it. We've got like 4 volts of voltage drop as a result of the resistance in the circuit. That's simple. We know the reason this light bulb won't light is because of resistance in the circuit. Now, this resistance in the circuit could be in one of a couple places. It could be a resistance in the positive side of the circuit, or it could be a resistance in the negative side of the circuit. To determine that, it's super easy. What we're going to do is we're going to isolate the positive side of the circuit by disconnecting the negative, going directly to the battery here, and when we push our button, we see we get the exact same result there. So we know our voltage drop must be on the positive side of the circuit, and now we know where to do our electrical testing to either replace the wiring or find the bad connection, find a bad connector, but we've that quickly narrowed down where our problem must be. All right, magic? Hardly. Basically, pretty much every car already uses this same technology in it. If you have a coolant temperature sensor, if you've got an air intake temperature sensor, the same concept that makes those sensors work is how the LOADpro works. Basically, the LOADpro simply introduces another resistor into the series, and we're measuring the voltage drop basically between resistances is how this is working. We explain this easily in my videos. So please don't be like the idiot that I saw on Amazon who gave this a bad review because there's no way you can replace the battery in it. Oh my God. All right, now you may be also thinking of some very reasonable questions though. One of them is, well, couldn't I just do a resistance check on the wiring? In this application that we did, absolutely you could. And you would find resistance in the wiring. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and do it. All right, we can just set our ohm meter to resistance. Now again, in a car, this is going to be a lot harder to do. It is easier to do now that we know that our issue is at least on the side. And we could do a couple of intelligent things here. One of them is maybe we've got a problem up to the switch. So we could measure up to our headlight switch here, and we can see that we don't have any resistance, at least from the light bulb to our switch. That wire is good. We could also check the resistance in the switch itself. It's possible maybe we have a bad connection in our switch. Let's check our switch. Nope, the switch doesn't have any resistance. Now if I turn the switch off, it will. It's going to have infinite resistance as it's open now and it shows out of limit. But our switch is not our problem here. But if we measure up to the switch here, well, now we can see we've got 10 ohms of resistance. This is obviously where our problem is. If we replace this wiring, incidentally, it is indeed a 10 ohm resistor there. If we replace that wiring, confirm now we don't have resistance, then of course our system is going to work. However, I'm sure you'll agree that our simple test with the LOADpro here was far faster at being able to tell we had to have resistance in the circuit than starting off with resistance measurement. And even then, we may have started the resistance measurement off on the ground side, which doesn't have a problem, and wasted even more time there. The other problem with a resistance test is it's only going to work on fairly thin wiring. If you've got something like battery cable or starter cable or something like that, even if the cable is bad, if you do a resistance test on it, guess what? You're going to find that there's no resistance on it, even if the cable is almost 95% corroded. Why? Because the cable is made up of hundreds of these little thin wires like that. And if you even have one or two of those thin wires that have good continuity, your meter is going to go through that and it's going to show good continuity, even though the cable overall is just about completely corroded. That's a very common mistake people will make, is trying to do resistance tests on too heavy a gauge of wiring. The LOADpro, however, would still work exactly the same as what you saw in that demonstration, even on the heavier gauge wiring. Now, of course, I am well familiar. There are a lot of other ways we could have done that without using the LOADpro. We could have just looked for voltage drop on the circuit on the positive and negative sides using just the DVOM with the circuit loaded. I know that. However, most people have no idea what that even means and how to do that exactly in a car. It's easy to do it with a battery and two wires, but to do that in a car is much, much harder to do. And for beginners, especially, the LOADpro is going to make that much easier and faster, that they know, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to fix it, but I have a voltage drop problem. I've got high resistance somewhere. At least it gets them in the right direction. The second thing is, even for somebody who knows what they're doing, just being able to determine, okay, I've got voltage drop, I can go from there. And being able to determine that with a simple, basic test like we just did, that you're going to start off with anyway as the very first step. Knowing that information and what you're dealing with in seconds, that will help even a seasoned automotive electrical specialist save time in getting the right direction right off the bat. All right, in conjunction with a lot of the other electrical tools we have, like the V-Diag tool, circuit tracers, things like that, you could make easy work out of resolving any electrical problem, but it all starts with knowing Do I have an open? Do I have a short? Do I have a ground fault? Or do I have high resistance in the circuit? You have to at least know what you're starting with in order to use your other tools in order to trace down the problem. It's going to be one of those four things, by the way. Electricity is so beautifully simple. As complicated as people make it, your electrical problem, before I even take a look at it, I know is going to be either an open, a short, a ground fault, a high resistance. It's one of those four. The sooner you determine which one it is, the quicker you'll be able to zero in and address the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and link some critical videos for you to watch. One of them, the first one, will be an actual example of the LOADpro detecting an actual electrical automotive problem. It's a nice short video. You're going to want to watch that. And then I'll link to some other videos that you will probably find very helpful in all of you guys that are looking to improve your electrical diagnostics. All right, so I hope this helps you guys on your endeavor to becoming better at the electrical diagnostics in cars. Good for you for doing that. As I've always said, all the time people bring me their cars telling me how great they are at car mechanics and everything, except when it comes to the electrical. Well, guess what? They're bringing it to me because of an electrical problem, because probably 80% of the issues that I see end up being electrical because modern cars just have a lot of electrical. You can complain about it all you want. You can talk about how horrible the designs are and everything like that. But all you're going to do is just limit yourself more and more to fixing 62 Chevelles and nothing more than that if you aren't going to step up with the technology. I'm going to help you do it. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful. We will see you next time.